as most of you probably know, recently I sat the Joomla Certification Exam and I passed, which was great. So if you go to the certification.joomla.org, you can see this list of certified user directory. So everyone who passes the exam automatically gets listed on that directory. So if you're looking for anyone in Australia or worldwide that has passed the exam, you can just go to that directory and it'll have it in the order that they did it. So the people who most recently sat the exam will be at the top and through to the people who sat it at the beginning. So there's a total of 230 people that are certified globally. If you look at Australia, we've got 16 certified, which is pretty good considering our size and things. So Nikki, who's down here, first Australian to be certified, she's the one who runs the certification exam, and she's based down in Melbourne. And she was up in Sydney recently and reached out to me and said, well, do you want to sit the exam? I'm up here. And so, yeah, why not? Originally I wasn't going to sit the exam because it's like, I don't need the certification for my career or anything like that. But the main reason why I sat it was so that now that I'm certified, I'll be able to supervise other exams. So if any of you want to do the certification, I'll be able to supervise it. And Nikki's aim was to have one person certified, at least in each JUG, so that if any other JUG members want to be certified, they'll be able to organise a time.
So you just did it on your own that day, did you think?
Yeah. Like we put out the thing on Facebook and it's meet up, and no one else expressed any interest. So it's just me.
And by being Joomla certified, is it more Joomla admin certified, or is it also the Joomla development side? And clearly, you've got the Joomla development side.
Yeah, the certification exam at the moment is just purely the administration. There's no development as in coding. It's all to do with the administration. So,
what's the format?
Okay, it's a multiple choice exam, and you've got 90 minutes to complete 60 questions, and those 60 questions are randomly selected from different categories. So if you go to our Joomla Day site, there's quite a good bit of information here about Joomla certification on the program here, and you can see there's all the different categories that they pull questions from. So Joomla architecture, installing Joomla, website structure. The more difficult ones for us Australians, I guess, would be multilingual sites, because most of us don't build multilingual sites. There might be some exceptions.
I'm ready.
You ready? Yeah, ready to go? Oh, brilliant.
No, I've just come open.
But for the most part, a lot of Australians don't do multilingual sites. So that's one area where, if you are going to sit the exam, you should definitely focus and study on. And
we asked many questions on that thing.
Yeah, well, out of the 60 questions, you probably get about 6 on multilingual or more, so it's quite a decent chunk. And it's definitely worth getting up your skills on that.
And what's the pass percentage?
So it's 80% pass mark, and they actually have part questions as well. Like some of the questions, it might give you a question and say select all the options that are true. So I don't know, just making up a random question here. There's nothing to the exam, but if I said what's the ways that you can install Joomla, and the options might be you can use the Joomla.com to build a site that way, or you can download the file from Joomla.org, install on your local host, or there might be an option you can download it and install it on your web host, or there might be an option that I don't know, something else. So you FTP to somewhere and do this or whatever. And so there might be four options, and out of those options, maybe 3 of them are the correct answer, but one of them is something completely wrong. And if you select all 3, then you get the full mark for that question. But if you only select 2 out of those 3, instead of getting the question wrong, they're actually nice to you and grade you and give you half marks sort of thing. So you might get 2/3 of the points or something. So that's why people at the end of the exam, they might end up with a 84.25 or something rather than just a rounded 84. So that's cool. I actually ended up with a rounded number, so I don't know whether I benefited or not from any of those hard questions. But I got enough to pass, that was the main thing. So as far as studying for the exam, there's some recommendations on how you can go about that. There's a learning guide on the docs.joomla.org, which it tells you all the different categories and then points you to some documents that will help you learn those categories. But I found that this was pretty bad. If you look at Joomla architecture, for instance, we've got a link here going to the learn more, whatever. Then you go to this website structure, and it's going to exactly the same link. And you go to the next category, installation. That's actually got some different links, but some of the sections, they're linking to the same page, and when you look at that page, it's a boring read, and to be honest, I don't think it's the best way to study for the exam, unless you're going to learn something specific. Like if you're looking to how to do multilingual associations, and you go to docs.joomla.org, and there'd be an article on that specific thing, then that would be worthwhile. But just going through the docs and links from this, it didn't help me, to be honest. The other way that they suggest is some online training. So there's, where is it?
OS training.
OS training, you've got some as well, but there's like a learn.joomla.org. I think it's learning. What is it? If I go to the site, I can probably find it on here. Training.
Okay.
So training.joomla.org. That's what I'm thinking of. And on here, there's some free videos you can watch, and they'll take you through some of the basics on Joomla, and also some of them are a little bit more intermediate, taking you to more advanced topics. The one here, how to build a multilingual site, Joomla 3, that's an excellent video, and I recommend that everyone sitting exam go through those videos and watch it, because you will learn quite a lot, particularly if you've never built any multilingual sites. And I got a lot out of watching these videos, and then following along doing the exercise, or recreating what they showed me there. So I highly recommend you watch this particular one. The other ones are okay, and I did get some stuff out of them, but the multilingual sites one is the key one that I got the most out of there. Yes, so if you watch that video, it literally takes you from scratch how to set up a multilingual site, first of all through the Joomla install, or secondly, if you've got an existing site that's already installed, how to enable the plugins and stuff to make it multilingual. And it also demonstrates how the multilingual associations work. Now, I don't know if any of you guys have ever come across multilingual associations, but basically, if you've got an article in English, you can link it with an article in, say, Spanish or French or Chinese or whatever. So if someone is on your website looking at that particular article and then they switch languages, it takes them to that same article on your site in the other language, instead of just going back to the home page when you switch language, which is the default sort of behaviour. So by having those associations, you're saying this article is equivalent of this article in a different language. You can do the same thing with menu items. You can say this About Us menu is the same as this About Us in Chinese, whatever. And you can do it with, I think you can do it with categories as well, that you can associate them to. So it's it's really powerful, and I'll do a little bit of a demo to get your head around that stuff. But when you turn on this multilingual stuff in Joomla, there's all these extra options that you don't normally see that suddenly appear. So that sort of things, if you've never come across it and never used it, and then you go to sit the exam, they're asking you questions on these features you've never seen, then you're going to be in trouble. Whereas if you go through that, then that's one key area you should definitely do. So the other thing I did besides going through some of this documentation, which to be honest was pretty terrible and boring, and going through these videos, is I also installed Joomla on my local host, and I literally just went through the back end and went through every option, stuck my mouse on top of it, looked at the little help text and go, oh yeah, I know what that is, got to a few options like, oh, I've never seen that before, I didn't know that was there, and so that's what I wanted to focus on tonight, some of those little things that I found while I was going through the back end that maybe you guys have used some of these things before or noticed them, but they're just things that surprised me and go, oh, okay, that's pretty cool.
So did any of those come up in the exam?
Some of them did actually, yeah.
Really?
And I can't say what, because like part of the terms and conditions of the exam is that you can't talk about exam questions, so you can't tell people, oh, I've got this particular question and this is how I answer it, sort of thing. But I can certainly show you some things, and some of this may or may not be an exam. The other thing is when you sit the exam, at the end, all you get is a score. It doesn't tell you which questions you got right and which ones you got wrong. So just because I answered a question in a particular way doesn't mean that that was the right answer and that I got it right. So I don't know which ones I got wrong. So
that's interesting.
Yeah. So let's install a copy of Joomla and go through some of the things. So the first page of the install, everyone's seen it. It's pretty familiar. You pick your default language, give it a site name. So we'll call this the JUG. You put in the email address for your admin person. Give it a username, so a nice secure username. And whack in a password, whatever you want to do. You got the option of whether you make it sign offline, online, all that sort of stuff. So you guys would all be familiar with this, having probably installed many times. You get to the database section. It may be important to know what databases Joomla supports and what the default one is and that sort of thing. So you put in your database details and your password and the database name. And obviously the prefix, and then we go next. Now this last page is the important one when it comes to multilingual. If you're installing a multilingual site, it says here that you're recommended to have no sample data, whereas quite often I'd be just going default English site when I'm installing something, or maybe some people would be going the Learn Joomla angle, but if you're doing a multilingual site, they recommend you do that first one there.
So what are the differences? I think I just always go no.
It's basically some of these sections here, they'll create a few menu items, they'll create a few articles and some categories and put those articles and the categories and link to the menu items. So when you install the site and go to the front end, there's actually something there as opposed to just nothing. That's the basic difference. Depending on what you select, depends on how it configures it. You can still delete all that stuff and rip it out later anyway, but we'll just go with the none to start here. Now, it may be important to know what some of these settings are here as far as what's recommended and what's not. I can't remember whether I've got a question on it, but I certainly studied that. So then when we go next to install, it obviously installs Joomla. And at the end of the install, normally you would remove your installation files and then go to your front end or your back end. If you're doing multilingual, there's an extra step. So there's this button here, extra step, install languages. So at this point, we can click onto that step. and choose what languages we want to install on our site. So let's pick a couple of interesting ones, Chinese, maybe Dutch, Spanish sounds good. So you pick a few languages that you want to install and go next. You'll notice that the versions here that shows like the most recent version that language pack has been updated to, but just because it doesn't have the latest version of it doesn't mean it's not going to work. Yeah, it might be that they haven't gone in and marked it to say this language is now up to date with the latest Joomla version. So this goes ahead and installs languages, and then there's another question after this that allows you to quite quickly and easily set up a multilingual site, and it does some of the configuration for you. So this multilingual option that you've got here, if you say activate multilingual features yes, that will automatically do some of the configuration in the back end instead of you having to manually do it. So that's quite handy. And we can enable the language code plugin. So when you make a site multilingual, there's two plugins. There's the language code plugin and there's the content plugin or something like that. And they both need to be enabled for it to work. And so by turning all that on, it just saves a bit of effort. And you can choose what your default language is for the front end and back end. I'll just leave that in English. But yeah, this steps here is quite important. And then we go finish. And now we've got the last step, so we can remove the install and go to our back end. I'll log in. You'll notice because I've got different languages installed, I've now got the options to log in as different languages, as opposed to when you just got English. You may see the username and password and not see the language dropped in. Okay, so let's just turn it off. If you look in the menus here, you see how it's set up a menu for each language that you've installed. So you don't have to do all that manually. And if you look at the articles, I'll see if it's set up any articles. Yep, okay, so it's set up one article in each language that I've installed there. If you look at the front end of the site, so it's automatically got the module to display the language switcher, and I can click on those languages and straight away I've got a functional multilingual site. Now, if you are doing the exam, it's worth doing that manually with a site that isn't multilingual, and then going in and manually turning on those plugins and setting that module and setting up the content languages and that sort of stuff. And by going through those videos that I pointed you to, they'll step you through what you need to do to set all that up. Yeah, but the interesting thing here I wanted to show you with the Multilingual Association, when you go into an article, you'll see this Associations tab, and in an English-only site you don't see that tab, it's an extra one. And within there it's got the different languages and allows you to link to the article or other piece of content that's associated with this particular piece of content. So in this case, you can see that there's, if I just clear this, you can say select articles. So you select, and okay, this is the Dutch article that's associated with this particular article, and now they're all linked together. It doesn't really work so well when you've just got a single site with a single menu item, because you're not seeing anything when you're clicking between them. It's just going to the same page, but the default behaviour of the languages is that it goes to the home page. With those associations, it's actually sort of top of the article. So if I was to create another article here, you'll see it in action. Let me just create two articles.
Yep. Sorry to interrupt you. Actually, I have a website bilingual.
Yes.
I facilitated this kind of a feature. If you like, I will show it. You can. I have a website.
Okay.
Yeah, you can demo this feature.
Yes.
You're talking
Well, I was just going to do a very quick demo here. So, okay, so we've created our article. You'll notice when you create an article by default it says language all. So what you need to do when you're doing multilingual site is select what language this article applies to. So I can say this article is just for English. And you'll see the little English flag appear there. And we'll select this one for Chinese. Now if we go into our menu, just going to make a new menu item here. About us, and I'll point it to that particular article. And I'm going to set the language to English. So now I've got this English about us here. I'm going to do the same on the Chinese menu. Set Chinese as the language and save that. Now let's go to the home page and I'll go to English language. You see how I've got the About Us menu. I'll go to the About Us page and now I'm seeing the English About Us page here. If I switch to Chinese, you see how it's gone back to the home page? It hasn't actually gone to the About Us page because I haven't associated the About Us article in English with the About Us article in Chinese. So what I can do is go into the article, either the English or the Chinese one, it doesn't matter which one you go into, and click on the Associations tab, and then for the Chinese, I can associate it with the Chinese version. Say that. Now when I go to the English About Us page, and then I'll swap it to Chinese, you see how it's gone to that Chinese version? Whereas if I swap it to Spanish, it's gone back to the home page because no association with that. Now, you can do that sort of association with articles as well as menu items as well. So in your About Us menu item, there's an associations tab here, and you can link that menu item with the equivalent in the other languages. So.
Can't tell it to stay on the page and just put up a little message saying there's no translation for this language.
No,
because that'd be good.
Yeah.
Send that through. Send that through to them.
Isn't going to home its default? I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just going to run home thing.
Yeah.
Basically. Yeah. So if you've got multilingual sites and people are swapping between languages and you want them to go to the same section but in the other language, then the association is really important. And there is questions on this in the exam, so yeah, you should definitely study up on this side of things. So that's the multilingual stuff, which was pretty cool. I'd done one multilingual site before, but I'd never used these associations. Yeah. I think they might have been a more recent feature since I did that site.
I think it is too. When I did
yeah, the other thing, there's actually a multilingual associations extension that is a more recent feature of Joomla, and it allows you to easily see on one page all the associations. What have I done wrong here? Maybe I need to select articles. Yeah, there we go. So I've selected articles in English, and I can see all the articles in English in one place. I can see all the ones in Chinese. And
see the association.
you can see not associated, so you can see that at the moment this is not associated with Dutch or Spanish, but it is associated with English, this particular article. So for people doing multilingual sites, this is supposed to be quite useful. I've never used it, but so that's the multilingual stuff. Yeah, what else was I going to show you? there's some things that I noticed just going through the back end of Joomla. You know, just in the user section, for instance, you've got the user, and you see this little thing here, advanced permission report. It's something I'd seen before, but I'd never clicked on it. So it's like, okay, I'm going to click on that, see what it does. It's like, oh wow, okay, that shows me all the permissions that this particular user has in different things. So that's pretty cool. And the same when you go to groups, there's advanced permission reports, so you can see, okay, everyone in the manager group, let's see what they have access to. And you can see it in one screen, all extensions and all the different things. So, yeah, I've never used this feature. I've seen it, I've never bothered clicking on it. But because I was going through clicking on every single link and things, like, oh wow, that's pretty cool. So it may be useful to some people. I don't think there was any questions on this, but yeah, it's still interesting that it's there. What else? That's right. In articles, you know, with an article, how you've got the text of an article. So I'll just get some more of it. Because I can't bother typing. So here's my article with lots of text, and then you might have a read more inserted in here, and then a whole lot more text. Save that. Now if we go to that particular article, so there's my article at the moment, it's just showing everything, so I can turn on the option to show the read more. I wonder why it's not turned on by default. Where is it? Let's read more text.
What was at the top?
It's in here somewhere.
Show intro text.
Yeah, there we go. Show.
You want to hide it.
Maybe it's in the options. Okay, it's because I'm not looking at it on a blog view, that's why. Maybe. Show read more, yes, that's set to show. Why is that not doing what it should?
Show read more if you open up the whole article, so that, as you say, it might be the blog view.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe it's because I'm looking at a single article. Let me create a new menu item. Blog. Okay, so category blog. Actually, maybe it's a setting in the menu item that was wrong. Okay, right, so that'll do. Okay, so there's a read more. Now, normally in an article, you got the intro text, the read more button, you click on read more, and you can see the rest of the article. Now, there's a use case where you might have an article where you want to give it a little teaser, so people can see maybe Robert's writing a story and he gives the first 2 paragraphs as a teaser, but then to be able to read the rest of the article, you have to be logged in or subscribed or something.
That's a good idea.
And so, yeah, the way that you can do that, there's a setting in the back end of Joomla here that I think it's it's in the article options.
Is it permissions under more?
Yeah, so first of all, you got to set the permissions on the article.
Yeah.
That's right. So here's our about us, and we'll set the permission instead of being accessed to public, we'll make it registered, so people have to log in to see it. So now when we look at this as an anonymous user, we don't see the article. Now, there's a setting in the article options here. Show unauthorized links. And it's like, I've never seen that setting before. What does that do? So if you set this to yes and save it, now when we look at this article with a read more, even though the article is set to be registered access, I can still see the first part of the article, but then when I want to go to read more, you see how it says now register to read more instead of just read more?
Yeah.
And if I click on that, it's just going to take me to the login page because I have to log in to be able to see the rest of that content. And so it's quite a good use case if you just want to give someone a teaser and then force them to log in or subscribe or pay or whatever to be able to see the rest of it. And it's just a really simple setting that it's probably been there a long time. There's probably people that use it all the time and go, oh yeah, I know that. But I personally have never used that feature, and I was surprised about it, and it is an important point to know about. So that was another one that surprised me.
How many can you have per page?
Sorry, what's that?
Read more, how many can you have per article?
Each article has one read more link, and then everything above the read more is the intro text, everything below the read more is the full article text.
So you can also, the full article doesn't have to show the intro text. I think there's a setting for that.
Yeah, there's a setting that you can not show the intro text when you're viewing the full article. Let me just refer to my notes and see what else.
I think the permission is applied to the entire article. But by setting the show in the unauthorized,
you override that permission.
at least we can see the first or second paragraph with a link. Read more.
Okay. So another area that I studied up on was the permission, the ACLs in general. Like I've done quite a lot with it, but I thought that would be an important thing to brush up on. And there was definitely some questions on ACLs. So if you go into just into any component global configuration, you've got the permission section, and you can see all the different access levels, all the different groups and what they've got. Understanding how the permissions work as far as inheritance, that the deny always wins, that if something's not set and then there's something below it that's specifically set, then that's going to override it. So at the very root level, you see here how it's not allowed, it's not set. Actually, if we go into the component configuration, global configuration, this is like the top level of the permissions, because you've got the global configuration, the component configuration, then the category article, like there's the 4 different levels of permissions, and they flow down from there. So if you specifically deny something at the global level, all those other levels is going to be denied as well. Whereas if it's implicitly denied, so set to here not set, that means that by default it's denied, but the fact it's not set means that I can override that in a lower level and say allowed, and allow it to happen. So there's actually some good documentation in the docs at Joomla on the permissions, and that's one area where it is worth reading over, and just understanding how the permissions flow down through the levels, that sort of thing. So
Maybe a good topic for another talk.
well, we could do a whole talk on that, yeah, absolutely. Yes, so I studied up on the different ACL actions and stuff, like the fact that you got not set, allowed, inherited, denied, all that sort of thing, and all the different options, these permission levels. So you've got permission levels to edit state, to edit own, to delete, to create, and just understanding what each of those permission levels do. So, for instance, the edit state permission, that allows you to publish or unpublish or archive something. Whereas, and it also allows you to mark something as trashed or delete. But if you want to empty the trash, you need to have the delete permission, because even if you've got the permission to edit state and put something in trash, if you don't have the delete permission, you can't actually delete it permanently. And things like the edit custom fields, if you don't have that permission, then all the custom fields are read-only for you. Whereas if you do have the edit permission, you can go in and edit the contents of those custom fields, that sort of thing. Access administration interface, that's for the back end of components. So if you had like someone that's set to manager level, you might control which components they can see and which ones they can't see, and you might set access administration interface to deny it for some components that you just don't want them going in and touching, and allow it for the ones that you do want them to edit, that sort of thing. The offline access, it allows you to log into a site that's offline and view the front end of that site. You've got the site login that allows you to log into the front end of the site. Administrator login allows you to log into the back end. So it's worth understanding what all these different permission levels are and how they work. So yeah, I brushed up on that just to make sure I was up to speed. Smart search and search is something I stayed up on. So if you've never used a smart search, then it'd be worth playing around with it and trying it out. Basically, to make smart search work, you've got to enable some content plugins that will allow you to index those pieces of content. So there's an article smart search plugin, and there's ones for like banners, for web links, for all the different components, and you need to have at least one of those enabled, and then you can index your content, and once it's indexed at content, then you can enable the smart search module or whatever, so that you can then search on the site. And the key difference between the smart search and the normal search that's built into Joomla, or the legacy search, is when you're doing the smart search and you type in something and maybe you spell it wrong, it's going to say, did you mean this? And it'll give you a suggestion that's close to it, that's actually contained on the site. Whereas the normal search, the legacy search doesn't do that sort of thing.
You can construct search strings too, can't you? Smart search.
Yeah. There's a lot more you can do with it compared to the other one. And there's like search filters that you can turn on and off, and so it's worth understanding how all that works and brushing up on that. So redirects is another one section I brushed up on. The redirect component in Joomla. So when you type in the URL wrong, it can capture the 404 error in here, and then you can see the list of all the pages that people have gone to on your site that don't exist, and then you can redirect them to pages that do exist. If there's one page that's getting 1,000 hits and it just doesn't exist on your site, you want to make sure that you put it to the right place. Or if you've just changed your menu structure or something like that, people might be going to an old link that doesn't exist anymore that you want to redirect to a new link, that sort of thing. So yeah, I'd definitely brush up on that. There's one feature in here that I found that you need to turn on the setting before you actually see it. Like, not normally when you go in here to create a redirect, you've got the URL, the old URL, the new URL, and whether it's enabled or not, and that's it. Whereas there's an option in the component options here. Because I literally went through every single screen in the back end of Joomla and looked at every options and things, and there's this advanced mode. It's like, what's advanced mode do? I've got no idea. Let's turn it on and see what happens. So I turned that on, and then when you go in to create the redirect, you've now got the option of what type of redirect do you want. Do you want it to be a 301 redirect? Do you want it to be a 302 redirect? Do you want it to be a 404 error? Whatever. So that's what advanced mode does. So that was another area that I never personally used, but it's cool that it's in there, and just looking at these features in the back end, it's like, oh, what does that do? I've got no idea. So yeah, had to Google it and try it out. Okay, I brushed up on microdata. So that's a contextual information in Joomla, like saying that this is a telephone number, or this is an author, and that sort of thing. I can't remember whether there's any questions on that, but yeah, it doesn't hurt to brush up on these things. What else? Multilingual, ACL. Multifactor authentication. If you've never used that before, it's worth brushing up on that. That's so you can link it in with the Google Authenticator app on your phone. So when you log in, instead of just giving a username and password, you've also got to give a number which changes every 30 seconds. And you've got the Google Authenticator app on your phone. And has anyone not used it? Yeah. So there's a free app you download, and it's got these numbers, and each website that you set up has a different number that you'll see they turn red, and then every 30 seconds those numbers change. So when you log into your site, you need to put your username, password, and whatever this number currently is, you type that in. And the way that it works is when you set it up, you've got like a QR code that you scan in on your phone, and that sets it up so it's synchronising it with your site basically, and will allow you to have that unique code that no one else will have. And it's just a way to make your site a bit more secure, stop someone else logging in. Now, you can turn on the multi-factor authentication per user. It's not something you have to do for all the users. So to turn it on, I think there's a plug-in that you turn on. I took some notes on it. Where is it? Two-factor authentication. So you've got the choice of Google Authenticator or YubiKey. So let's go into the Google Authenticator one. YubiKey, for anyone who doesn't know, it's like a USB key that you plug into your computer, and it's got a button on it. And instead of you manually typing in that code from the Google Authenticator, when you stick the USB key and press the button, that automatically populates the field on the login form for you. And then you put your username and password, stick your USB and press the button, it populates that number, and then you press submit, and it allows you to log in without having to type in that number. So it's just a piece of hardware that you can buy. I've got one at home. Don't use it. Got it. And it's just another option that you got. So anyway, with the two-factor authentication, you can decide whether you want it on the front end or the back end or both, depending on what your needs are. And so you go in and enable it.
Are there two options? So you can't have one where it just sends you a pin code to your phone or something?
No, it doesn't have that ability. So then for each user, you've got to go in and set it up. Two-factor authentication tab appears under user profile, and by default it's disabled, so you can go in and enable it. So I'll enable Google Authenticator, and it gives you some instructions there. It gives you a QR code. You scan that in with your app, and that'll set it up on your phone. One thing to be aware of is that that Google Authenticator app doesn't get backed up in your iCloud and stuff when it does the backup of your phone. So if your phone gets destroyed or you have to wipe it and you get a new phone, you're not going to have that two-factor authentication thing. So in that instance, there's some one-time emergency passwords that you can generate, and it's basically a long string that's like 50 characters long that you print off, stick it in your safe or whatever, and if at any point you lose your phone or your phone's broken or something and you need to get in, you can bring out that emergency code, do it the once, and that will allow you to log in and disable the two-factor authentication, and then you can re-enable it and set up with your new phone or whatever.
So I have a question about this QR code.
Yeah.
Is that per person or
Yeah.
this is per person?
Per person. Yeah.
So different person you get a different
Correct.
QR code.
Yeah.
Okay. So so basically you need to show that in your website somewhere so the person can use their phone to go to
Each user would have to set it up themselves. They would have to enable it themselves. The two-factor authentication.
and then they scan this QR code.
And scan the QR code, and then they would have that.
I see. Thank you.
Yeah. So actually, it may be the same code for everyone on the site. I'm not 100%
No,
sure.
because the code uses the, but it uses the, when I've used it, it's by the email address, so that's the user's email address.
Yeah. Anyway, there wasn't a question specifically on that. So but anyway, so two-factor authentication. It's something that many of us probably don't use. Some of us probably should, but depending on what your site is, a lot of sites, who cares if you got it on or not. But yeah, it's something that could be asked in the exam, so it's worth knowing about. What else? There wasn't any questions on the new GDPR stuff at all, which I found interesting. You know how they've now got the what is it? What's the extension called? No, I'm not seeing it. Oh, it's because I haven't got the plugin installed. Privacy, I think it is. No. Yeah, this consent. Okay. Oh yeah, there it is. It's only users now. So the whole privacy system where people can request for you to delete them from your site, and you can download all their private information, so you can supply it to them if on request, that sort of stuff. All the things to comply with the GDPR. It was a new feature in one of the Joomla versions, might have been Joomla 3.7 or something. And yes, some of these newer features, there wasn't any questions on it when I sat the exam, but that's not to say that there won't be those questions in future. According to Nikki, they're constantly updating the questions on the exam, or the available question pool with some of these newer features. So it could be that I was just lucky and didn't get any questions specifically on this stuff. But yeah, there's a chance that someone sitting a future exam may get questions on it. But I personally didn't get any questions on it. But I still brushed up on it, and yeah.
Does it, out of the box, prompt you for telling you the site, or you have to get a plugin for that? To go to the prompt.
To prompt for
The
what?
prompt the user, or let the user know that they accept cookies policy and so forth.
I think that in here, like, you can set it up. Where is it? There's a plugin that you can link it to your to your terms and conditions and stuff. Where was it? I can't remember what it is. Maybe it's under consent. I've seen it in here somewhere.
Dashboard,
It's just a language field. I really can't remember. There's a setting in there somewhere where maybe it's here. Oh yeah, edit privacy consent plugin. That's the one. And in here you can link it to the article that's got your privacy policy. Yeah, that sort of thing. Yeah, to be honest, I didn't really brush up too much on this. It's like, I get 1 or 2 questions on it, but I like the idea. So,
So look at that.
Yeah, so what else is in here? Language overrides. If you've never used language overrides, that's something worth brushing up on. So when you do a language override, why is it not letting me do a new language override? Please, I've got to select language because it's multilingual now. I've got to choose which language I'm overriding. So this is where you can change the text strings on the site from one thing to another thing. So, for instance, this forgot your username. Let's say I wanted to change that text. I didn't like the default text that Joomla gave me. I can search for that string. And there's the mod login forgot your username. That's probably the one that we're looking at. When you click on it, it'll put in the language string and whatever the current text is, and you can change this to whatever you like. So, now when we look at the site, you see that text has changed. And so you can do that for every language, and any default text in Joomla that you don't like, you can change. So even in the back end, like you can do the language overrides for the admin area. This is for the site area, but you can also do them for the admin area. Let's say you don't like the word system on that menu there, and you want to call it something else because your users are more familiar with a different term. You could go in here and change it to the English administrator language, and go new, and we'll search for the system. Okay, so then you've got to figure out which one it is. It doesn't look like any of those more results. I guess because that's a very generic thing. Maybe it's this one here, com config system. Let's find out. Let's just change it to dashboard. Save it and see what happens. Okay, that's obviously not the right string because it didn't change it. But if you knew which string it was, you'd be able to override it and change it.
So do we need to delete it?
I wonder where I changed. Okay, it says dashboard here now instead of system. So depending.
That's what it was.
If you get the right string, like it's something a bit more specific is a lot easier to find. When it's something a bit more generic like system, there's so many strings that contain it. But you can pretty much override any of the text in the back end or front end of Joomla. And the way that works, just from a technical point of view, in case you care, it's no questions on this, but just out of interest. If you go into administrator languages, and then you've got your languages, so ENGB, you'll see in here that there's
these assignments are done there.
I thought there was an override in here somewhere.
Wasn't there a separate one?
Or is it in a different folder? Oh, yeah, we can go. There's an overrides folder, and within that, it's got the overrides that are created. So if we look at this file, you can see there's the override that I did for the dashboard. So if you knew the strings, you could literally type them in here. Let me try to guess what. Okay, so
Would be like a menu or something.
Anyway, I'll just try putting in something random and see if that works. Yeah, there we go, your computer boxing. So, it's literally just an image file. You could manually edit like that, but obviously the way that you should do it is via the overrides, and you'll see there it's already brought in that language string that I've manually typed in. It's an interface to access it there. Another thing that would be worth looking at is the templating. So from a template perspective, how you can go in here and create overrides for modules and components and stuff, instead of manually copying the default file from this folder to this folder. You can create your overrides through here too. So that's important to know about. That's probably about it. Like a lot of the questions were things that I already knew. Some of the questions were worded in a tricky way, and I had to carefully read them and interpret them. But yeah, it's if you do some study in these key areas, like particularly the multilingual area and some of these other areas, then I think all of you would have a good chance of passing. But if you just say, oh, I've used Joomla for years, I'll just go sit the exam, then there's a good chance that you won't pass.
Cool.
Yeah. So, any specific questions on any of that?
No, that's good. It's giving me some ideas too, some of those hidden areas to have a look at.
What's that?
It's giving me some ideas too, the use privacy and so forth to have a look at. So,
yeah. Yeah, well, even if you're not providing content to European users, some of those privacy features might be of interest to you, like things like giving the people the ability to request removal from your site. It basically gives them a form to fill out that they can fill it out, submit it, and then it goes into like a queue in the back here in the privacy, the requests queue here, and then you can see all the requests from people that have requested to have their information removed or updated or whatever. And
so you've still got their info.
You've still got to manually process it.
go through all your backups and remove all the data.
Yeah, depends on the extent on your interpretation of the laws. Like, I really don't think anyone's going to delete all their backups just because someone requested that you remove their user account from your site.
If they paid some money or something, they still need their record for 7 years for filling in accounts and stuff.
Yeah, so in Australia it's not as applicable.
It's bureaucratic.
But yeah, that's not to say that we won't get similar laws in future. But the whole idea around those GDPR laws is that people have a right to know what information you're storing on them, and the right to correct that information. So if you're storing my phone number and then I change mobile phones, I should be able to find out from you, yes, you've got my old phone number and here's my new one, can you update it for me, that sort of thing. But also the right to be forgotten. So let's say I'm no longer interested in reading Robert's stories, so I'd just like you to remove my account and forget about me and see you later, sort of thing.
There we go.
Like you know how like you're dealing with businesses, maybe you purchase a WordPress plugin or something, and then 6 months later I'm no longer building WordPress sites, I'm only doing Joomla sites, so I don't want those WordPress people to know anything about me, so remove me, that sort of thing.
I did look into some of this, and with the plugins, it was hideously difficult to decide which one to get. And so it's good to know there's something out of the box that'll require.
Well, I think it just does the bare minimum compliance.
That's all I want.
If you want something more sophisticated, then there's other extensions available. But for the bare minimum stuff, it's okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. That's all right.
Thank you.
So,
Super cool.
I guess we'll open the floor to general questions and.
Questions?